Welcome to the AppStudio for ArcGIS, an introduction. My name is Chris Lesweer. I'm the product manager for AppStudio, and we have our product engineers, Nakul Manocha, Anshuman Mathur, they're both product engineers, and Loye Jamon are an apps developer on the AppStudio team. So a little bit about, well, actually, I want to ask you a few questions real quick. Pull the audience here. Who considers themselves a developer? Raise of hands. Okay. Who considers himself an iOS developer? An Android developer? Okay, not such. Who considers himself a GIS professional that can hack together some code, copy, paste some JavaScript, Python, and create some stuff from it? Yeah, look at that. The majority of you. Who doesn't consider themselves a developer at all or can't even hack together some code? Okay, a few hands going up too. Cool. Hey, well, you're all in the right place. You're all in the right place if that's the case. Particularly, I think you GIS professionals that can hack together some code and know maybe some JavaScript, know some Python. This is definitely going to be a good solution for you, and I think you're definitely in the right place. So AppStudio, I'll just give you a little overview of what we're going to talk about today. I'll give an overview of AppStudio, what it is, what problems it solves, a number of users that are using it, and the kinds of applications they're building with it. I'll go through a quick demo of kind of building a template, or you building an app based on one of our templates. After I do that, Nakul is going to show you AppStudio Player and run this template and how AppStudio Player works. And then we're going to see how get a tour of the desktop application, how to use samples, and then also how to take advantage of simulators and emulators and that. So we get a little bit techie in this introduction course or session. Last year I got feedback that hey, they wanted to see more technical and more code. So in the last bit, sort of like the last 15-20 minutes, you'll see code up on the screen, and you get an idea of what it's like to actually write and extend these apps or write it from scratch, and what it looks like with the writing for AppStudio, and that's in a language called QML. And Loye will do that. So just warn you, if you're way in the back, seeing the code from back there might be a little difficult, but that's going to be at the very end. To let you know. So what is AppStudio for ArcGIS? Well, it's a platform or a set of tools, a productivity tools to help you build apps, to take away a lot of some of the difficulties in building apps, make you a lot more efficient, make it easier, and make it possible that you can really maybe write an app once and create it for multiple platforms, and that's a big key piece to it. So we'll go throughout today talk about these pieces of these productivity tools, these individual tools that kind of make up the whole product and help you create apps. AppStudio's icon is purple, and if you don't like the color purple, I'm sorry, because you're going to see a whole bunch of purple slides for about 15 slides here. Whoa, we don't need to. So yeah, we got some nice purple slides here. Why native apps? Why do we need to build native apps? I mean, on our mobile devices, smartphones, tablets, and in desktops, we can use a browser and view a map. Well, there are certain things that you don't get when just using a browser, and there's certain things that I think a lot of us prefer to use a native app. I mean, just look at the popularity. If you look at the statistics on a smartphone or tablet, how often, particularly smartphones, how often people spend using a native app to access services rather than a browser. And it's I think in the 80% native apps versus browsers. Browsers are still important, we need them, but there's reasons to use native apps. One reason there for sure is that offline capability. So you won't need to take your app offline. You need to, you might not have connectivity at all in some places. So that capability of going offline is a key piece of having a native app running on a device. Device capabilities. These are things like getting access, the best precision on your GPS, getting access to maybe the accelerometer, the other information, the access to the GPU and CPU, so it runs very quick. When you use a native app, it typically feels a little better. I think many of us use some online services like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. Some of these services, if you can open them on your smartphone, go to the browser and type in www.twitter.com, put in your login, and it looks pretty good and it works fine. But most of us prefer that native app, that feel. Things are smooth, things are come quickly, and they just feel good. And it takes advantage of some of the native capabilities. And you can also access things, on the operating system, like being able to share items with other people, being able to access maybe the contacts on the device. So there's device capabilities, or why we build native apps is one reason. Another reason. And then that last bit there, the app stores. And this, for many people, this is almost like the number one reason why, because they want to get their apps and their maps, and in our case, many of us, it's our maps and the apps we make with these maps, and get those into the app stores. If I when I join a bank and take on an account in a bank, I expect that I can just go to the app stores and search and find their the app for that bank. I mean, it's a given that they got to have it. Where it used to be every organization had 20 years ago, we all had to get an internet or a website. You had to have a company website. You have to many organizations, we need an app in the store, because that's where people are going to look. That's where we're going to find it. And it's really important to get your products out there, to get it into the particularly the Google Play Store and the Apple App Store. So there's some of the reasons why we build native apps. What are some of the challenges? And there are challenges with building native apps. One is the cost, the time. It's not easy. Most people would say that have maybe developed for the web and developed for like iOS or Android, it takes longer on those native platforms, usually more resources, and it can be very expensive. Whether you're doing it yourself, the time and resources, or having contracting that out, it can be very expensive. There's also some, how are you going to distribute this? Is it going to be in the app stores? Is it going to be through your own enterprise mobile deployment management system? Is it going to be just other ways you want to push it through the enterprise? We with AppStudio have some unique ways of solving that piece as well of distribution. Do you want to provide some security to your apps and maps and data? Do you want them to log in? Do you want them to be prompted and things like that with security to this information? And the last one is being able to maintain the maintenance and updates for these apps, particularly if you have many platforms. Because if you want to hit iOS, Android, maybe you also are creating something for Windows, Linux, Mac. There's 5 platforms. That's 5 times the code. I talk to organizations. They make this. We do it at Esri with some of our apps, and many organizations do it where we write the app more. We have a team that writes it for iOS, a team that writes it for Android, as an example. And for many shops, that's just not scalable. It's not really possible. So AppStudio works on that challenge as well. So as I mentioned, it's a native app development platform. It is a platform to build for iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, Linux, and we try to bring the ease of web development and the power of this native platform. So if you've ever developed for the web, it's oftentimes you can just really write your code, and view it immediately in a browser. There's no compiling or sending off a build and compiling and installing it and see what it looks like. You can just quickly see what it looks like in a browser, and also easily let someone else see what it looks like in a browser, so they can give feedback, and you can go back and forth with designers or managers or whoever you're working on this project with. So some of those, that ease of web development and quickness with the power of writing a native app and having access to the capabilities of a native app. And a big deal with AppStudio, or one thing that we accomplish, is instead of 5 times the code, you write the code once, and it gets compiled for these different platforms. So one of the secret sauce I like to say with AppStudio is that you write your code once for AppStudio, or build or configure a template, and then that app project gets pushed up into ArcGIS Online, and then we have a service called CloudMake, and it's a number of servers. There's a Mac up there, there's a Windows, Linux, there's these different servers up there, and they will take that project and do builds, meaning they'll create a binary file, an install file for these different platforms, for all the different platforms, and then save that down into your account. You can download it and do what you want. So you don't have to set up a whole bunch of different build machines. We handle that process. We want you to focus on writing nice apps and writing and not having to worry about some of that other stuff. AppStudio comes in two different license levels, and I'll go into detail on this piece on what comes with each. So AppStudio Basic is it comes with every ArcGIS subscription as long as you're level 2. So if you're level 1 viewer level, no, it's not include that. But most people, if you can create maps in ArcGIS with ArcGIS Online or with your ArcGIS subscription, you can use AppStudio Basic. It allows you to use your browser to create a native app. You do this by configuring one of our 3 templates with your map, and say there's no development required. And with your maps and data and images, you configure your template. One thing is that these must be public maps and services. So with AppStudio Basic and building an app using that, these must be public services, and the app must be available, given to the public. But it allows you to add that own branding and style, and then publish these into the app stores. AppStudio Standards Basic is really focused on taking public maps and getting that, being able to create your own app and put those into the app stores for people to access. So what does AppStudio Standard give you? The AppStudio Standard, you get it, and I'll show you kind of in a second here a little more about where to get it, but it's part of our Esri developer subscription. So we have this Esri developer subscription program, and there's multiple levels. At the second level is the builder level. Anything from builder and above, you get AppStudio Standard. And it's really a bunch of developer productivity tools to help you. Allows you to take those templates that we have and extend them. So we see a lot of people doing this. They take our templates and they add their own little, whether it's visual or their own little bit of functionality to our templates. You can do that, or you can create an app from scratch, or use one of our samples as a starting point for creating an app. It comes with a lot of widgets and samples to get you going, get you started. But you have the full, as I say here, the full access to the ArcGIS Runtime API. If you don't know what that is, it's the core building blocks that we use to create a lot of our apps at Esri. So Collector, ArcGIS Earth, Explorer, all these apps are created using the runtime, the ArcGIS Runtime, the Runtime API. Now we do have ArcGIS Runtime API or SDKs for iOS, Android, Qt, Java, Windows. We do have, if you're in those development environments and that's the only thing you're developing for, that might be a solution for you. AppStudio can hit all those platforms. It also has, I'd say, a number of productivity tools and tooling on top of it that make it easy to get up and going that we'll go through today. AppStudio Standard has that, you access that hosted build infrastructure to be able to create your own builds in the cloud. If you want to do a build locally and create these binaries, you can do that as well. Some situations they do that. You can also, we also support using online services and on-premise services. So you can create an app that uses your own services coming from your own portal or ArcGIS Enterprise and your own ArcGIS server. So you can access those kind of services. And with AppStudio Standard, you can publish to the stores, but it's licensed such that you can publish it just internally within your organization. Because a lot of people want to do that. They want to build some focused apps for their organization, and AppStudio Standard is the level that you need to do that. I mentioned where to find this, so let's see. If you go here to developers.arcgis.com, you'll see a list of the different subscriptions that we have. So there's Essentials, which is completely free. Sign up and you have Essentials, and there's Builder, Professional, Premium, and Enterprise. So anything from Builder on, you get AppStudio Standard. I can't talk about pricing on that. It's not. You can look at it later. The pricing for US is available here on the site. But this is how you get AppStudio Standard. It's included with that Builder and above. If you are an EDN subscriber, which is our Esri Developer Network, Esri Developer Network is shifting to the Esri developer subscription. So if you already have EDN, most likely you have AppStudio or you have access to it. You just need to convert your EDN over to a developer subscription called customer service, and they're moving out. If you're not already moved, they will be moving you over to this, because that's the renaming and the rebranding of it. All right. We're back, yeah. Apps. There's a whole bunch of apps there. These are apps that are built from mostly from our customers. A few of them built by Esri. So I'm going to give you some examples of the type of apps that you can create with AppStudio. Here's one. It's called the TURT app. So turtles uniting researchers and tourists. This was built by a marine biologist who took some GIS classes and then found out about AppStudio, and he created this using our quick report template. This basically connects to an editable feature service and allows you to update those features, but it is for crowdsourcing or citizen science, so it will allow you to identify marine turtles around the world. Really had no developer skills and was able to publish this into the iOS and Android app stores. A nice little app. The National Arboretum, they had this was an app created by one of our partners for the National Arboretum. And this was, I'd say this was really cool because it quickly went from proof of concept to real application. Basically, this is kind of what you could do previously, maybe on the web. Hey, we want to get a contract to make this application for someone. So they pretty much wrote it up, what it would look like, and then presented it. Hey, would you like us to build, an app that looks like this? And because they so quickly do it, they were able to get that, do that, and get the contract. And now there's this nice app that will navigate you around the National Arboretum and the park and plant features there. GoTime was another app built for the Massachusetts DOT by one of our partners. You see it kind of animating there. If you've ever seen, like on the highway, those signs that say like 20 minutes to the airport and stuff like that, well, throughout Massachusetts they have a lot of those signs. Their whole network is called the GoTime network. And this is an app that gives you the information coming from those signs, so you kind of know the authoritative information coming from the DOT on how long it'll take. This was I'd say created by one of our Esri partners. The reason they chose, they hadn't done any AppStudio work, but they said, hey, we need to get this out on iOS and Android in 5 weeks. We think AppStudio is the right tool for us, and they've been really happy with it. The quote here is, as a rapid application development tool goes, AppStudio has been invaluable. This was the feedback they gave me. Just really excited that they were able to get this out as quickly as they did, and they didn't think that would have been possible using separate development teams, iOS and Android, and trying to get it out. Esri, we also build a few apps. This one was recently, or just a couple months ago, was released, the Ecological Marine Unit Explorer. It allows you to, this access to all this massive data set of marine data, so salinity and temperature and these points all around the world from our Living Atlas team. Well, this was a Python developer at Esri who wanted to build this for both platforms and took a 2-day workshop from the team here and was able to do that. So about the workshop, right now we don't have any official training on AppStudio, but we've been talking to people, getting feedback on who would like to participate in a workshop, who would like to maybe come to Redlands to do a workshop, or who would maybe want to do one virtually. So afterwards, come up and give us your business card or your feedback, or we'll take your name if you're interested in an AppStudio workshop. We've done 1- and 2-day workshops, and people seem to really enjoy them. Professional services, our professional services group that does work for others, has also built some apps. This is a unique one for the City of Long Beach Water. Unique that it's published in the app stores, but it's an enterprise app. To use it, you need to log in with your city ArcGIS account to be able to see the different construction projects that the water department's doing around the city. And then our Esri Labs group at Esri does a number of projects with AppStudio. OGO recently was released. This is a augmented reality, being able to see your own points in augmented reality. If you're interested in that, it sounds cool. You can. It's in the stores now, in the app stores. You can download that. The Tile Package Creator is a unique app. This is a desktop app and allows you to make tile packages, TPK files from online services. Why would you want that? Well, maybe you want to use those tile packages in Collector or Survey123 as your background base map. What's really cool with these is you can easily make, I was talking to someone the other day, they wanted to make a tile package, which is a bunch of tiled images along the corridor of the railroad, because that's where they work. They don't need a giant square of, a big massive file, but with this tool, you can say, I just want it along this corridor, and it'll make those for you. But it's a really nice desktop application built with AppStudio. And then tucked to there is a smart compass that will not point you north or south, it'll point you to a specific point you want to go to, so you can follow the compass and in maybe the forest or on water, find a location. And last, our biggest success story with AppStudio is Survey123. Probably many of you are using it or have heard of it. It's for form-based data collection, and that is built with AppStudio. And because of that, it releases on all those platforms at the same time when we have a new release. And they release about every 6 weeks, a new release of Survey123, and it releases on iOS, Android, Mac, Windows, and Linux with each one of those releases. Now, I have a number of names of customers here who are taking the Survey123 template. So with AppStudio Standard, you get the template and you can customize the Survey123 app. Some people just want their own branding on it. Some people want to add extra functionality, but we give you the template as well as a few other of those, all those Esri Labs templates as well, like Tile Package Creator. We give those with AppStudio as well. You can use those just as starting places. I want to talk just a little bit about AppStudio 2.0 because we released it. It says there July 1st. We released on June 30th, so we beat that date. It's our most recent release, version 2.0. It was a big release for us because the next bullet point, we moved to the next generation of our runtime, that core mapping components, and this was if you're familiar with it, it's the Quartz runtime, or the runtime 100. It's a big deal. It adds a lot of cool things for us, like support for vector tile supports, smart mapping, more labeling support, mobile map packages that you can take offline, and really kind of rewritten. A lot of it was rewritten underneath. So we had to rewrite all of our samples and everything for this. But it was a big release, but we were excited about it because it gives us all this cool functionality that people have been waiting for. We also totally redesigned the desktop interface of AppStudio Desktop and updated some really great updates to the templates and added a lot of some new samples and widgets. So this is what AppStudio Desktop looked previously. It looked nice, but we kind of gave it a new modern interface. That's the dark theme. You can switch to a light theme if you like to as well. As that new user experience, you can now easier to search and filter your apps by a number of different parameters, and easier access and by searching and finding all the templates and samples. And now all of our templates or samples are right within the app. You can create new apps off of those. So it's really the team did a great job on that. All right, I'm going to now I'm going to show actually a quick demo of using a template. So I'm going to use the online templates to build an app. So the stuff that comes with AppStudio Basic. And Nicole's going to show that using our AppStudio player. But so what I'm doing can be used. You can do it with AppStudio, Basic or Standard, but definitely comes with AppStudio Basic level of licensing. So let me switch over. I'll sit down, go into demo mode. Now here I'm on appstudio.arcgis.com, and I have logged in with my account. Hold on. I've logged in with my account, and here we get a lot of information about the product that you would expect from like a product page. If I click Create Your App, it'll open me here where I can create an app from one of these templates. So I have the map tour, the map viewer. So the map tour, it takes if you're familiar with story maps, our story map templates, it takes the map tour template from our story map templates, and it turns that into an app, basically. So it's just a bunch of points. Each point's got a picture and some description, and it takes you on a tour of a location. Like here, the example that's rotating through is the tour of Palm Springs. We have a map viewer, which will take a map or a group of maps and create an app from it. But basically, that the app itself, the map is the app. It gives you a nice experience with working with the map. So who want to do things like this is like a county that might have want to put out a parks app, a map of their parks and trails for others to use, for the public to use. And then the quick report, like that turtle app I talked about earlier, this is for citizen science. This is for crowdsourcing data, being able to capture data easily, quickly in the field with a couple, an easy form, and be able to snap a picture of it and send that back to the server. You can capture information. We're going to go through and do this one here, the map viewer. All of these have seen a refresh recently, and this one probably the biggest refresh of the bunch. So I need to give it a title. We're going to make a Utah Department of Natural Resources, Utah DNR Gallery. So the state of Utah. And we'll say a gallery of DNR maps. I need to add a few things here, and it's prompting me, okay, you need to add a picture. So I simply click, and I'm going to add a thumbnail, or a thumbnail. This is just the thumbnail that's going to show up as an item type in ArcGIS Online, because this is going to be an item in ArcGIS Online. I need to get an icon, because apps have an icon that you click on to use them. Oh, whoops. Sorry, I clicked the wrong thing. I need a background image or a splash screen. So when you start, often you'll start an app and it might take a second to load on a slower device. On newer devices, it loads like that, but it's slower. It might take a second. So we want to show something. So we're gonna give a background image so it shows something nice. And then I need to add that icon. All right, I've got my features, and you're getting a little preview here of what it might look like. In fact, I go to the next tab. You see a little preview as well, and when I add the standard background, the background for the rest of the app, you'll get an idea. So what do it look like on a tablet, on a phone, on a desktop? This is not an exact representation, but it gives you a good idea of what it's going to look like. Then I need to do this. I need to choose my web map or maps. So I click here. I'll have access to, okay, so I have my content on this, in this organization. I've got a few maps. I can look other maps in the organization, or I can look for some public maps. So you can actually make an app from public maps. I would say don't go make a bunch of apps from other people's maps and services without their permission, because you don't own those rights. But you have access to those public maps. I created a group called Utah DNR Maps, because I didn't actually, these aren't all my maps, of course. Created that group. I'm going to do a search. Whoops, I'm going to use the search syntax that you would use for any searching in ArcGIS Online, and say group : that group ID number that I just grabbed from my group. And there I have. And what's neat about this is that's a group. It's pointing to a group. I can add or remove maps from that group, and it'll just pick those up. So I can publish my app, and if I want to add a new map to this gallery, just add it to that group, and boom, it shows up on people's devices. Hit OK. All right, I'm going to hit save and finish. And it brings me here to this my app console. I can go back and edit those parameters, or I can build the app. Now, I can build this app for Android, iOS, Linux, Mac, Windows, and that's 32-bit and 64. You might notice that iOS is grayed out. That's because to do a build at all of iOS, you do need a certificate and the right certificate and provisioning files from Apple. That's a whole other process, a whole other, actually we had a demo theater on it yesterday. So if you have those certificates, you would sign that information here, and that build would be enabled. But all the others, I don't need to have that. I'll just click on Android for now, and hit build. And now it's taking my project that's stored in ArcGIS Online, and it's calling to our CloudMake, our servers, and saying, hey, he wants to do a build of this. They're grabbing that project, and they're going to create a binary for that. For Android, that's an APK file. And so the request is going. But we have another way that we can preview this and look at it on a device to see how it's really going to look, what the look and feel is going to be. Maybe have someone else in our organization test this out. And I'm going to bring up this QR code and turn some time over to Nicole, who's going to show us AppStudio Player and how that works. So let's switch over to number 4. All right.
Thanks, Chris. So I'm going to preview the app on the AppStudio Player. But before I do that, I want to know how many of you have heard about AppStudio Player or have used AppStudio Player before? Okay. So for those who do not know what's AppStudio Player, it's a companion app to the AppStudio suite, which is used to instantly view your apps, which you build with the AppStudio desktop or on the website for testing and collaboration purpose. So I have the AppStudio Player already downloaded. I downloaded from the App Store. You could do that also. This is available on the Apple App Store and Google Play Store. So I'm going to launch this app. So you can see I have a bunch of apps within the Player app. Now I'm going to preview the app which Chris built in less than 5 minutes. So for that, I can do a search for that app. But I'm going to do something cool. I'm going to go ahead and scan the QR code. It's going to ask me, do you want to access your camera? So I say yes. So I scan the QR code and my app is up there and running. So I'm going to hit the start button. Oh, so AppStudio Player actually supports the material design, and currently my material design is not set it up. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go out, go to settings, and switch to material design. So
you only have to do that once. I actually removed AppStudio Player today and reloaded it. That's why it's
okay.
Like that. Yeah.
So my app is here. I'm going to run it again. Here we go. So these are the bunch of web maps which were added to the group which Chris added. I'm going to go into one of them. So let's choose Utah geosites. So this is a web map which is loaded now in our map viewer template. So I can zoom in, zoom out. I can rotate the map. You see how the scale, how the labels also rotate when I rotate the map. I can do bookmarks. So if I have the bookmarks enabled in the web map, I can look for the bookmarks. So I can go to the Great Salt Lake. I can switch between different bookmarks. Also I can do is I can switch my base map. So for instance, if I want to choose the OpenStreetMap, I can go ahead and choose that.
Turn it sideways.
Next. So I can also look for the info of the web map. I can go through the legend. I can go through the content. I can turn on or off the layer. Another thing I can do is do a feature search. I'm going to search for Cascade. Done. I'm going to search for Cascade Falls. There we go. I'm going to tap on it. Here. So I can see the details of the feature I just selected. I can see the attachments here which are attached to this feature. Here is the image. And if there is any media attached to it, I can get to that also. I also have an option to see the map units. So let me show you the map units. And what's cool about the map units is that as I move, I can see my map units on different types of map units, including the MGRS and decimal degrees. So what we saw that how to run your app or test your app in the player. Now I'm going to hand over to Anshuman, who's going to talk about or who's going to take a tour of the AppStudio desktop. Thank you.
Sorry, we switch mics here.
Hi, everyone. So you have already seen how to create apps from AppStudio website. Chris has already shown you that, and Nakul has shown you how you can view and simulate those apps in Player. What if you need to customize your app, or you want to add some new functionality to it, or maybe you just want to create an app from scratch using code? Well, you can use AppStudio Desktop for that. I'll just give you an overview of it. So this is how AppStudio Desktop looks now. In case you have used AppStudio Desktop earlier, you might have noticed the new and revamped look and feel. So this in front of you is the app gallery where you can see all the apps that you have created. And on the top bar, there are some options and preferences that you can use to customize your desktop experience. Like, say, suppose you can change the theme to a light theme or a dark theme. Change the side panel to left or right. Maybe I'll keep the light theme for now.
Yeah.
Okay. On the right sidebar, you can see some information regarding the apps that you have created, the name, the version, the date it was created or modified, along with a set of tools that you can use. I'll come to those tools in a bit. We've also changed the way you search for your applications. So right now we don't have that many applications, but I can show it to you in this. Say if you start typing your name here, it will shortlist your applications. You can filter your applications based on if they are locally created or have they been uploaded on the cloud. Let me just go to the local applications for now. Let's just create a new app for now. So when you click on new app, it shows the new app dialog box. There are different categories of apps that you can create. So in the starter apps, these are the absolute basic apps, the hello world type of apps. So this would be a good starting point in case you want to start your new app. In templates, we have 3 different types of templates. These are the same templates that Chris showed you on AppStudio website. So these are almost ready apps which need a few customizations, some changes in your branding, and you can use them as your own app. Then within samples, these apps basically focus on a specific functionality. For example, if you want something related to barcode, this sample will show you a simple basic barcode reader, and you can create an app, copy the code, and use it in your own app. Let's just try to create an app out of, you can search for samples as well. So let me find the closest facility sample and create an app out of it. Okay, great. So once the app is created, it shows in your app gallery. You can go here and change the name of it. Let me rename as closest facility UC 2017. And if you run the app here itself, you can see how it would look when it's built. So in this particular sample, you're seeing a bunch of hospitals, and if you select your own location, it will route you to the nearest hospital from your location. And you can change the width and dimensions of the app to see how it appears in different screen sizes and all those things. If you have to customize your app, you can go to settings. There are a few settings that you can change. You can change the title, summary, or description of your app. If you go to resources, you can make changes to your icon, and you may want to add your own background or a launch image, basically branding related changes. All that can be done in the resources tab. You can change or configure the devices on which this app should run. Maybe you want the apps to run only on a desktop device or only on mobile devices. So you can choose which devices the app should run on. Then in the capabilities tab, you can select which capabilities your app should have. For example, your app might use a camera or might use background location. So you can configure those capabilities here. And when you're running this app on your phone or a device, it asks you for your permission to use these capabilities. You can also upload your app to either your ArcGIS online account, or if you have ArcGIS Enterprise or a portal configured, it can be uploaded over there. Once your app is uploaded, you can either share this app with others in your organization, or it can be downloaded from Player and you can use it to simulate on multiple devices. Finally, when you're sure that it runs well in Player and you're comfortable with building your app, you can go to the Make tool. And there are basically two ways to build your app. In case you have your local build environment set up, like say suppose for Android you need Android Studio, or for iOS apps you need Xcode, then you can use the local Make setup. This is generally used for people who don't really want to upload your app to some cloud server and want to build it locally. They can make use of the cloud build. Or we have our build servers in the cloud. All you need to do is select the platform for which you need the application to be made. And when you hit build, it will send the request to our cloud servers. And within minutes, you'll have a link in your email for your installation files. Nakul will take over here and explain to you how these can be run on virtual devices as well.
Thanks, Anshuman. So we saw the tour of AppStudio Desktop. So as I talked about the Player before, so Player is a great app to view your apps, but it's virtually impossible to have all the devices available, especially if you have to go back to like iOS 8 or 9 or 7. It's just not possible. So to solve this problem, what we do is we provide emulators for Android and simulators for iOS. To do that, basically, I have the AppStudio Desktop here. I'm going to click on Launch Virtual Devices. I have an option to choose from Android virtual devices or iOS simulators. So I'm going to go ahead and choose an iOS simulator. I'm going to launch iPhone 5. So this iPhone 5 is actually configured to iOS 10.2, and that's because I have the Xcode 8 and I downloaded only the 10.2 iOS version. But you can go ahead and download version 8 also if you need to. So as you see, on my iOS simulator, there are exactly same number of apps as they are in the desktop. The reason why they are same is because they actually share the same folder, which means that if I were to go ahead and make a change to one of these apps, they will instantly available on my simulator also. So I'm gonna just run the same app which Anshuman built, the closest facility one. So go ahead, I'm going to open that, and there we go. So it's the same app I'm running in the Player, as you can see. So I'm going to click here, and it's the closest facility to the hospital. So what you saw, that how you can view your apps in the iOS simulator. This works very similarly how you do it in the Android emulator also. So now I'm going to have Loai talk to you guys about how to write these code in using QML.
All right. Yeah, so we're switching over now. Hopefully you've seen some of the productivity tools like this: simulators, emulators, Player, the access to samples and things. Now we're going to get into seeing some code on the screen. As I mentioned, when we did this last year, the feedback I got was, hey, this is great, but we want to go a little deeper. We wanted to see some more code. And so if you're not a coder, don't be scared, don't run off, because I think what you're going to see is that this is very readable. and doable. And if you have done some web development, kind of looks like some JSON, kind of looks like some JavaScript in there as well. And you want to learn something. So I'll turn the time over to Loe, and he's gonna show us that.
Thanks, Chris. So in this section, we are going to write a base map switcher app. This is a one-page app with a menu and buttons enabling you to change the base map of your map. So before I proceed, how many people have written QML code before?
Yeah.
Nobody, but well, some of you have used AppStudio, so maybe you must have looked into the code. But that's not a problem. That's not a requirement. Most of you are analysts who have hacked code before. I am an analyst. I used to be an analyst who hacked my way through learning how to write websites and Python and C#. Now, I found that picking up QML was relatively easier than all these other languages. And I hope you relate with that. So my goals, I have two goals today. First, I want to explain the structure of QML code and how to position components. For example, how do I place this button on the left of my screen? And secondly, I want to show you how to use JavaScript expressions and the concept of property binding. Property binding is very awesome. In my opinion, it's the best thing about QML. So I will talk about that. Let's get started with the coding. I will exit my PowerPoint and move on to AppStudio Desktop. So let's create a new app. And from the list of options, pick the simplest starter. Once our item has been created, I am going to rename it Base Map Switcher. Let's delve into the code to see what it looks like. So notice, as with most languages, the first thing we have are the imports. We're bringing in the libraries that we need. The first two libraries are the Qt libraries. The first one, Qt Quick, is bringing in the basic QML types that we need. The next two, these ones, are the App Framework and the App Framework Controls. These are AppStudio specific libraries. And the last one, the Runtime library, this is what is bringing the power of ArcGIS into your mobile app. So I will uncomment that because we need that for this, for our base map switcher. Now, let's take a look at the QML code itself. So notice the structure is very JSON-like, where you have an object that has attribute and value pairs. So also notice that this can be, you can have an object inside an object. It can be nested. So let me run this so that we see what it looks like visually. And you can see the code matches. What you see in the code is what you have visually. So in this case, we have a container which is 400 by 640. And inside there is a text with the string, it's my app. Now, earlier I talked about property binding. What is property binding? It is when you assign the value of one property as a function of another property, such that when that other property changes, the former one changes with it. Let me show you a simple example. I want to bind the width of the app to this text property. So what I will do is I add the width. And when I run this, you can see that the width of the app is 400. Now, because I bound it, when I change the width, the text updates with it. So this is a very useful feature. It helps you to keep your models, your data in sync with your view easily. If you have to do this in another language, you will need to write many more lines of code than this. Now let's move on to with writing our base map switcher. So we don't need all of this. So I have broken down the development into 4 phases. First, we are going to build the framework for our base map switcher. What I mean by framework is the container, the main views that make up the complete navigation of the app. In this case, what we need is we need a container, we need a menu page, and we need a header. So for our container, I'm going to use a rectangle. This is another noteworthy feature about QML, the fact that your root element can be any component. In another declarative language like HTML, the HTML tag is always the root element. So in this case, we are going to use a rectangle, and what we also want is a header. For the header, we can use another rectangle. I'll give it an ID header. Let's give it a width of the parent width. So we bind that, and let's give it a height of 56 pixels. A color of steel blue as well. There, we have our header. So the next thing we need is a menu page. And what I want for a menu page is, I'm sure you've seen this common UI design in most of your apps, where a page pops out from the left or the right and then back in. So that's what we want. In QML, there is a component known as drawer that we can achieve that with. So we're going to add the drawer. Let's call it, give it an ID menu, a width of 75% of the parent width, and let's give it a height equal to the parent height. Now, okay, thanks, Ashman. So I am going to, let's run this to see what our framework looks like. So there, we have our basic framework, a container, a blue steel header, and we have a drawer, a menu. I can drag that out, and it fills 75% of my parent width. So that is phase one of our development. We're able to do this with these few lines of code. So the next thing, phase two, let's add a menu button such that when you click the button, our menu page pops out. So QML has a component known as a tool button. We are going to use that. Let's add that in the header. And let's position it. We want to position it on the left of the header. So you can use anchors in QML. Anchors allow you to specify where you want a component to be placed relative to its parent or its sibling. So in this case, we want the left of the button to be placed on the parent's left. We want it to be vertically centered in the parent. And let's give it a left margin of 8 pixels. So this is the space between the parent and the button. So the other thing we want for our button is an image. So right now it's just a plain button, but we want to give it this image, the hamburger. It's called a hamburger button. So first I am going to drag that image into my project folder. Open the folder and then drag the image. So once my image is in the folder, I can reference it in my code. So the tool button has a property known as indicator, where I can specify the image. And the source of my image is its name, menu.png. And I want the image to fill the entire button. So I will do an anchors.fill parent. Now let's run this to see what our framework looks like. There, we have our button. It looks good, but if I click, it doesn't do what we want yet. So to do that, we need to add JavaScript. We need to call an open function. So this drawer has a method known as open, and we can call that once the button is clicked. So you add JavaScript expressions in QML inside events. So this button has an onClicked event. When the button is clicked, I want to open the menu page. Let's run that now and try. So when I click on this, my menu page opens, and when I click away, it closes. So That is phase 2. Now for phase 3, we haven't done any runtime. We haven't added any map. Right now, I'm going to add a map to our app. So for this, I will use a scene view. Let me copy the code so I don't have to type the whole thing. So this is what the scene view looks like. It comes with the new runtime, and it allows you to embed a 3D globe into your app. So this code right here is I am positioning the scene view below the header. And in my scene view, I have a map, a scene, with a 3D, with a base map, a default imagery base map. So let's run this to see what it looks like. Just let me make sure my network is on. So I need to reposition my scene view. So I put that in the drawer. So if I open the drawer, you will have seen the scene view in it.
Now, that could be cool.
So I want my scene view to be in my rectangle, the container. There. So now if I run it, I am telling the truth. You can see the scene view right there. So I can spend the rest of my time spinning the globe. But, so that's phase 3 of our development. Now, the last phase is we want to add the actual buttons to switch the base map. And we are going to add those buttons to this menu page. So that code I also have ready. I will copy this column. And I want to paste it in the drawer. So this may look like many lines of code, but it's not. I am repeating, if you notice, I am repeating this component, the button, 3 different times. So because I want 3 for the 3 different base maps. So let's take a look at the code I just pasted. This is a column. And I like using columns and column layout in QML. What a column does is it allows you to visually stack components one after the other vertically without having to explicitly position them with anchors. And similarly, there is a row and a row layout that you can use for horizontally stacking components. In this case, let's look at the 4 components I added. The first one is a rectangle, which I want to be the header of the menu page. And that rectangle has a text in it with the string base map. And the color of that rectangle is a darker version of the header's color. So the next 3 components that I've added in the column are 3 buttons. And each button's function is to switch the base map. So let's look at the code in the button. The first thing I do is I declare a variable called base map. And I call the ArcGIS JavaScript function create object. This is another usefulness of JavaScript in QML, is that you can dynamically create your object, your components when you need them. You don't have to instantiate everything immediately, because sometimes you only need an object at a certain time in your control flow. So during that time, you can create it. And that's what, so I am creating the street base map. And when this button is clicked, this is the button's onClick event. I assign my map.basemap. I change my map's base map. So let's go to the map component. The map is my scene. So this is my map. It has a base map property, which is imagery. When I click the button, I change that base map with this base map from the button's base map. And that is the same with the 3 different buttons, each of them creating a different base map. So let's run this to see what it looks like. So in my menu page, you see the 4 components I stacked in, the header, and I can change the base map to a street view, and my globe is updated. If I zoom in, into my hometown, you can start seeing street data. So I can also change to a terrain-based map, and I can change to an ocean's view. So that's it. That's our base map switcher that we've created with these lines of code. So, so I want to conclude by just recapping the two main concepts we talked about. So first we looked at the structure of QML code, and remember it's a JSON-like structure. You can position effectively using anchors, and any element in QML can be your root element. We also looked at expressions in QML, and you've seen how property binding, you can use property binding to keep your data in sync with your views. And finally, we looked at how to use JavaScript expressions. You can use JavaScript for the business logic and for dynamically creating components on the fly. Now, there are many other things that you can do with QML that I obviously did not go through. It's out of scope, but very many cool things. Like you can create very beautiful animations and transitions with ease for a better user experience. So with that, I invite you to look further, deeper into QML. Chris.
Thank you, Loai. Pretty cool stuff. So, hey, you asked for seeing code, so we brought you code, or you didn't ask for. The people asked for code, but you got to see it. But hopefully that gives you an idea of the structure of it. I know it helps me. I'm not a developer per se. I've hacked away at some QML code, and it's great to hear it explained like that and the organization. And I'd say it is quite readable when you get into working with QML. So that concludes our presentation. I think we gave you a pretty good from the intro of what AppStudio is, how to work with templates, the desktop applications, some of the productivity tools, as well as seeing what it's like to kind of build and write this code with AppStudio. Again, I said talk to us about training. You can come up here, give us your card, or you can email at email appstudio@esri.com and let us know, hey, I'm interested in training, and because we're thinking about doing, we've done some workshops and thinking about doing like one in Redlands if you're able to come out to Redlands, or maybe we'll do a virtual 1 or 2 day workshop on AppStudio and get you up and going if you're interested in that. With that, we do have to bring up the obligatory. There's a survey in the app. Fill that out, please. Just find our survey and then hit number 5 all the way across the 5 at the right-hand side, and hit submit, and you'll be good. Takes you just a couple seconds, but again, now we'll open up for any questions that you have, and feel free to come up here and talk to us. So, yeah, any questions about AppStudio? Yes. So I will say that our widgets now are more in kind of sample componentized bits or samples. It's not quite the same way as like a web app builder where you just choose widgets and they pop up in your app.
So that's a different
Web app builder is a different product, and it has very much widgets. We are, kind of our research and development, kind of a lot of the rest of the year is we want to look at more and make it easier to just, okay, I want to build an app, and I want it to have this functionality, this functionality, this functionality, and make it easier to just drop those in. I don't think it'll ever be quite web app builder style, but easier to, I want a base map switcher, and I want this specialized compass, and I want this and this, and people add those in. So, yeah. But yeah. Yep. Web App Builder runs on the web. It is a web page. So kind of from those first reasons, if you need to have an app in the App Store to promote your app, if they want it to run natively installed on a device, if it needs to run offline. He showed a 3D globe. That's part of the new runtime. Some of these capabilities and device capabilities, being able to do like higher accuracy GPS data collection. That's what you're into. That's an AppStudio app. That's a native app. If it's something that someone's just going to use once or twice on their device, and you want a nice looking map for them to look at, probably Web App Builder is the solution for that. They're going to go to that website or that web page. I mean, I don't know. I don't love to, if I'm going to use a service on the web or use something, I kind of get bugged when it makes, this is personal maybe, when it makes me install an app to do that thing once. If I'm going to, I'll install, and I have tons of apps on my phone, but I try to keep the ones that I'm going to use often. And so that's, or that I want to just get a really good experience with. Yeah. So there's a number. Yep. So make different languages, your app translated into different languages, yeah. We do give the template, one thing for Survey 123, and that has some really cool capabilities for actually switching languages. You could have English, Spanish, Portuguese, switch between them. That's a good example. I'm going to ask actually the team, what about, that gets into a little further in depth on language support and with apps, so.
So you can localize your apps, and if you see in the samples, we also have a sample for localization of your apps, and we have a wiki page on in our documentation which details all the steps in which you can have your app translated into multiple languages.
Plus, all our templates are actually supports localization. So.
Yeah. So you could translate a number of strings, correct?
Yes.
And then they can show up in different languages when installed on an operating system of that language. Yeah. So we do support localization. Good question. We haven't had that one yet, actually. Yes.
Google shows $1,500 to upgrade to the standard version.
You're speaking U.S. prices. Some of us are not in the U.S., but I'll let you know that or it's higher. Yep.
Is there anything else needed? Is that per workstation or license?
It is per developer. Yes, it's a subscription. It's part of that whole Esri developer subscription kind of package. And you get a few other things with not just AppStudio. You get like a test environment of ArcGIS users and a separate org, and you can test it and things. But yes, that is it's clumped in. If you're like, well, I don't want to just if I don't want to pay $1,500 right now, if I'm not sure if it's the right thing, download Desktop. And we actually let you run the samples, play with the code, write your own little thing. It's just we don't let you do a binary build of that to run other places. But you can total prototype and work with Desktop and code and write with it before committing to that subscription.
Is there anything else you recommend we have for software?
Anything else you need besides software? I mean, it's kind of a one-stop install of, we didn't get into the kind of the guts of how this is possible, how this cross-platform is possible. We're using some technology called Qt, SDK underneath. So the IDE he's using, where he's writing the code, the integrated development environment, that's actually a third-party product called Qt Creator. But when you install AppStudio Desktop, that gets installed automatically as part of it. So it's pretty up and going. It's one install. AppStudio Desktop's there with all the samples and everything. Qt Creator gets installed for writing your code all at once.
Is this stuff included in the ELA?
Sometimes. Got to talk to your account manager. Yeah. Some ELAs often included like Esri Developer Network subscriptions. If that was the case, then yes, this would be included because that would roll over into a Esri Developer Network subscription. Yes. It'd be just talk to customer service, make sure that you roll it into a developer subscription. Yes, you would.
Is there any relationship between AppStudio and being able to develop custom widgets for Web App Builder?
No relation at all, except for that your JavaScript skills doing one should translate to help you in JavaScript. It's not as JavaScript is JavaScript, whatever. The frameworks are different, but it is nice that you can reuse some of your JavaScript skills to build these apps. But no, the widgets are completely different technology underneath there. Is there another hand over here? Yep.
I've seen that recently Qt Creator has changed their policy to cost. Is the version that is included in AppStudio, that's it? Do you need another extra license for Qt Creator?
So you do not. You do not. We have a deal with the Qt company that for distributing apps, you don't. I'd say that if you, we have a support page about this. If you are charging for some of your apps in the stores, you might have to get a license from Qt Creator. Also, if you there's certain like kind of an upgrade to Qt Creator. If for some special debugging tools, you can buy a license from them as well. But we have a special deal to distribute our apps. You do not have to open source your code, which with the free Qt Creator you actually do. There's some open source licensing that you have to do. We have a deal where you don't have to do that. So that gets into some of the things we did with them.
Is there already a place where there are code snippets that are...
We didn't talk about this, all those, well, all our stuff is all on GitHub. So all these samples and things are searchable through Google on GitHub, and they're available. The best places are GeoNet blog. And the team here is really great about, so if you're not on GeoNet, you should be. It's our community of users and Esri support and Esri development team. If you ask questions on GeoNet, the team will answer. And that's where we often post like specific, there's the big ArcGIS blog where there's a lot of product announcements and stuff. On GeoNet, we have our little GeoNet blog. Subscribe to that, and that's like, hey, here's some tips and tricks, here's some samples, and there's a lot of information there. And I will admit, there's not, QML as the language, it's not like you can just go anywhere and learn it. It's not like JavaScript. It is a little more specialized. It's being used by a number of organizations. There's big, Qt, and the technology is used by some big application builders, but it's still not like the breadth of training, and that's why we had that slide up before about contact us if you're interested in training, because we provide it to some, and that's probably the best way to, or one of the best ways to learn it. There's also a website called QML Book, or if you Google QML Book, that's like teaches you how to write QML and how it's structured. That's a really good resource. So QML Book, I would Google that. Yep.
You mentioned for offline users, if they use a web app, you need the app automatically cache on the web.
Mm-hmm.
An error, then you can go to the field with their offline.
There is offline capabilities. We have some samples for taking your data offline. And it's nice that this new release, we support mobile map packages, which is a really nice compressed vectorized offline map package, which we support as one of our formats as well. And they can use vector tile base maps inside that offline map package, which are really cool. There'll be more features coming actually later in the year with being able to easier dynamically take maps offline, but that is, it's definitely, we have some samples and that's possible.
One more thing. For our quick report template actually supports MMPK from this release, so you can check it out.
So those mobile map packages, our quick report template, supports those, and you can kind of see how it's being used, because that template's available with AppStudio.
Do you support alternative data streams from like Bluetooth or?
Sure. We have Bluetooth capabilities, a lot of different. We didn't even talk about the new plugins that came in at this release. So there's some new
Yesterday we had a session, advanced session, where they talked about those things.
Yeah, there was an advanced session right after our session yesterday. So in the proceedings, you should be able to access like the slides and some of the. I don't know all the recordings, but at least the slides about these sessions. They talked a little more in depth about some of those capabilities. But yeah, we can support Bluetooth. There's some pretty, I say the gyroscope, the accelerometer. We have apps that are using those, and they've written once, and it works on those sensors on iOS and Android both. So yeah, they are cross-platform. Do we have another question? All right, it's getting late today. We're all going to the party tonight. Yeah, I got our wristbands, All right, my family came to town. We're gonna go to the party. It's kind of a good time. So, come up here. Give us your card info if you have any other questions, and thank you for coming.
Thank you.